Hello and welcome to the Millionaire Mompreneur podcast, where we empower mompreneurs to build wealth, grow thriving businesses, and reclaim their time. I'm your host, Alexa Starks. I'm a tech expert, a ChatGPT master, and a mama to two little ones under 2. And I'm here to guide you through the ups, the downs, and everything in between of running a business while raising a family. Each week, we'll dive into topics like making money, scaling your business, and embracing a millionaire mindset. So grab a coffee or reheat the one that you forgot, and let's get started on building the life that you deserve. Hello, and welcome to this episode of the Millionaire Mompreneur podcast. I'm Alexa Starks, your host, and today I have with me Miranda. She is an amazing mental health expert, and she has a phenomenal book that's about to be published in about a week from now, called The Attachment Style Makeover. And she's going to talk all about addressing attachment styles and self-healing and parenting, and how as mompreneurs we can balance all of that and being successful. So Miranda, welcome to the show. I'm so happy to have you here. And
Likewise.
I would love if you would give a little background on yourself and your book and your work and how you got to doing what you do.
Yes, thank you so much. Back to you for having me here. I'm so excited to talk to this community specifically, as you know, there's definitely like an overlap of like concern and like, um, what we want most. I
Mm-hmm.
definitely share, even as a mental health therapist. So I started practicing I wanna say like 10 or 15 years ago. I think there's a part of my brain that blocks it out because I don't wanna be that old. I don't wanna be that
Right.
person. But, yeah, I mean, I started out seeing kids, and once I started having my bandwidth for the amount of energy it takes
Ah.
to really provide
Mm-hmm.
a good service. And I also think that there's also just a parallel of, like, things that I've been through, and so when I started seeing adults, first I was seeing people that were struggling with anxiety and maybe some depression, and, of course, a common thread was their relationships. And so
Mm.
as I was also doing my own personal work, so just know if you seeing a therapist, they should be seeing a therapist too, right?
Right.
Like
Everyone should
practicing
see
what
a
we preach.
therapist. Let's all
It's
get
just
ourselves some help in self-healing.
yeah, it's just a way to like practice responsibly, right?
Mhm.
And
Yep.
so as I was unpacking my own stuff, I recognize attachment trauma within myself. And it's been so valuable, me doing my own work, because
Mhm.
it's given me a language and how to
Mm.
guide and connect with other women, moms, and people who are concerned with not repeating patterns that they've
Mhm.
perhaps been through. So.
I love that, I love that. Can you give a little bit more insight into sort of what you mean when you say attachment issues, just in case anyone's not completely aware of what that is?
Definitely. So attachment is, I guess, in a nutshell, is how we connect with others. It's
Mhm.
what we've learned works for us. Um, and I hesitate because there's like so many caveats because my brain just goes a mile a minute with this stuff. But it's what we learned, but it doesn't necessarily make it like fact. It's what we've
Mm.
learned to use to connect. So, for instance, in our childhood, the things that happen to us build narratives of what we
Mm.
can expect from life, what we can expect from others, and that becomes our truth then, right?
Right.
So, if I needed to be a caretaker to a parent that was going through something, maybe a divorce or addiction, or maybe even just like a loss, like maybe someone close to them passed away, then I may adopt that as the truth in my identity and my relationships moving forward. And that doesn't always work for us to
Right.
mimic the same exact things we learned to do in childhood.
That's a tough one because if it's the only thing we've known how to do or we've done it for so long, it's just ingrained in us and it can be really hard to break through and break out of that.
Absolutely. I the biggest part is that it's what we've identified as safety.
Hmm.
And so it's really hard to ask someone to put something down that has historically, maybe not recently, but has
Mhm.
historically kept them safe. It feels threatening to do so.
Right. Wow, that's a good one. Safety. So how do you see this impacting us as moms and parents?
Well, it definitely impacts us. I have a term that I call Well, it's not really, I didn't make up the term, but like I refer to it as default settings.
Mm,
And so what we've experienced is usually what comes out in our parenting, whether or not we see value in it, whether we like it. It's kind
mhm.
of what we do by accident, which is sometimes for us a good thing and sometimes for us not so helpful. And so that's how it shows up as like a parent.
Mhm.
And then of course our kids are forming their own based on their interactions with us in the world around them.
Yeah, and I see this with my son. He's a toddler. He's almost 2. He'll be 2 in, 2 months on January 9th, and he is right in the middle of like just learning all these big kid emotions, like frustration and anger and being unhappy. And that was my toy. And in daycare, they're all learning how to hit and bite and like all these big kid feelings and dealing with them. And so he's, having these tantrums sometimes. And I have to learn to let him experience all those emotions and not just try to like quick fix and immediately jump in and be like, "Oh no, come here, let me help you, like let me hug you." And as much as I want to do that, and I do after, I also want to make sure I'm giving him space to feel those emotions because that to me is a healthy thing that I know isn't often that I don't see that very often happening, right? They're like, "Oh my God, my kid's having a tantrum. Let me just try to stop it as fast as possible." But we wanna teach them to express their emotions and feel those emotions in a healthy way.
Wise mama. So, yes, what better way to help them feel and express them in a healthy way to let them actually experience them?
Mhm,
And so, in my day to day practice, I encounter many adults that don't know the how of sitting in a feeling. And so here
mhm.
you are, paving this path. It may feel uncomfortable, especially if you're in public, because then
Yeah.
you're not only thinking about what's best for your child, but then you're thinking about the perception of others and those ramifications. But ultimately, I think it's probably one of the greatest gifts we can give to our children.
I completely agree, and I've done my therapy, like, I've been in therapy, I've done it, and I'll admit I used to be not good at expressing emotions and feeling emotions, and I was very, like, autopilot and numb for a long time, and then I was like, "I don't wanna do that anymore." I had to do a lot of therapy work to fully let myself feel my emotions and express it, and it came from a place of feeling safe. I was safe not feeling anything, but now I wanted to learn how to feel everything, and so I did a lot of meditation and sort of being more mindful and having more self-awareness and letting myself feel bad emotions when I didn't wanna feel them, instead of
Mhm.
pushing them down, but it takes work. It takes a lot of work and a lot of self-awareness and like you mentioned, a lot of getting out of your safety zone to do the work. But that's important as parents, as moms, and especially as business owners to make sure that you're well-rounded, like 360 view, right?
Definitely, definitely. I love how you put that, getting out of your safety zone and also creating a new one. Because
Love that.
what was safe in those scenarios back in your childhood, perhaps it was appropriate to be dressed and armored in this way, but
Mhm.
we're not fighting the same fight. You know,
Right.
my struggle as a 3-year-old, a 13-year-old, a 23-year-old is much different as I, advance into my 30s and now 40s. So,
Absolutely. Can you share some more tips and advice from your book? I can't wait for it to come out. This is gonna be
definitely.
a good one.
I mean, every session since its completion, I almost just wanna say, "Oh, just read this book and then call me later."
You
But no,
should.
I it includes a lot of the principles that you're talking about, and it was so important for us. I'm co-authoring it actually with
Mhm.
my therapist bestie,
I
Jessica
love it.
Harris. She's a licensed professional counselor here too, and so, it was important for us not to just create a book because I feel like people have the knowledge. And now, everyone's a therapist on social media. They have their
Yeah.
takes and they're informing the community. So the community is informed,
Mhm.
maybe not everyone knows everything, but you can take a pretty quick dive to like, okay, what is attachment? What is attachment trauma? What are attachment
Mhm.
styles and things like that? But we really wanted it to be accessible and give
Mm.
practical life-changing tools for transformation. If you really do take it seriously, there are things that may come up for you that may require you to like just pause for a second and like perhaps consider seeing a therapist and working
Mhm.
with them through this workbook. But it's definitely a great companion if you're already in therapy or have had some therapy. And
Mhm.
so, like you said, teaching people how to sit in their emotions in a safe, comfortable way. That doesn't mean that you have to just jump into the deep end because that can easily turn into like a wallow or a
Right.
spiral, but doing it with intention and
Mm.
with a goal in mind behind it. It's also, bringing awareness to the different patterns you're using and really
Mm.
taking a step back and analyze how effective is this for me in this particular relationship. And so, we're all beings. It's not often that I find someone with a relationship pattern or relationship issue that doesn't show up in all facets of their life. It just may
Mm.
show up differently. And
Mhm.
so the my behaviors may not be causing a problem at home. They actually may be causing a problem at work or my business.
Mhm.
My lack of boundaries, my people pleasing is just not conducive to some of the work dynamics. And so, taking a step back to analyze what your patterns are, where they're effective, where they're not, and making some course corrections.
I love that. I love that it's got really actionable tips and more like workbook style you kinda mentioned because like you said, on social media, everyone's a therapist, right? And everyone's giving out advice, but people scroll through and really quickly, and it's like fast. You get like attachment style XYZ, and therapist or mindset or self-care, this and that, but
Mhm.
it's no one's taking that time to pause and actually implement a strategy. And I think that's maybe something vastly different about a book that has actionable insight and tips, and you're investing a little bit more than just scrolling through your social media feed, investing more into yourself to make yourself, to work on yourself and make yourself better, right?
Mhm.
Because you have to do the work. You have to pause and do the work, not just, all right, scroll through, save that, like that, reshare that. That doesn't do anything for you.
If anything, you are really gambling and may cause more harm than good.
Mm.
Because, I mean, myself as a therapist who's on social media, I may post something that I 100% would stand firm on, bet money on, but it's not a one size fits all. You really have to do the work and make sure you're applying things that make sense for where you are, what your values are, what you want, what works for the masses or what works for this person over there or this influencer over here may
Mhm.
not really be relevant to your life because they have a totally set of different experiences, circumstances, and what makes them feel safe may not be the same thing for you.
Right. No, that's a good point. That's a good point. And it's so important as moms and mompreneurs, like you mentioned before, that there may be something that we don't notice in our personal life, but it is affecting our business life. And so having the self-awareness to recognize what's going on is really important and really hard to do. Can you share a little bit of your um, expert advice on how mompreneurs can kind of balance that and work to build that self awareness to better balance motherhood and running a business?
Definitely. We've talked about, you and I have both talked about that self awareness piece, and that's a muscle to be built. So
Mm.
here's a little test or a taste or preview of like how to break it down and make it practical because it's cute to say be
Right.
self-aware, but what does that mean and how do I build that muscle? Because me saying that I want to be self-aware doesn't just happen because I say I want
Right.
it. So, I encourage folks to, if you have a smartwatch or you can set a timer on your phone or whatever, a calendar invite for yourself to just check in, whether
Mm.
that's, once a day to begin with, that grows into twice, three, four times a day until it becomes a state of being.
Mm.
Checking in with yourself, asking those essential questions. What am I feeling right now? And getting super specific. Don't just stop at happy, sad, mad, glad. Like
Hmm.
there's nuances to those emotions. A good reference is the Gottman feelings wheel,
Hmm.
and they break it down, and so you start in the center, and that's where the basic emotions are, and as you go outward, they get more specific, but get specific about what you're feeling, because if you know exactly what you're feeling, it leads you to then knowing what you may need, and
Ooh,
some
that's a good
people
one.
find that there's like a disconnect. Well, I don't know what I need. That's why I'm here, you know? But
Hmm.
if you don't know, just think if my child or my business partner or my customer was feeling this way, what would logically, intuitively, what would I do to meet that need? And
Hmm.
start there and just see what happens.
That's
I
amazing. I
think,
love that.
yeah, as moms, as business owners, we often push through our feelings
Hmm.
and we ignore and neglect our needs until
Hmm.
we either are over it, we train ourselves not to need those things,
Right.
or until it's all hell breaks loose. And so I really want to push against that. I want you to acknowledge and honor and meet your needs just as you do your children and your business needs.
Oh, this is so good. I love this. I definitely, this is something I know I can implement in my days. Just a 5 minute break, right? And just check in with myself. How am I feeling? How am I doing? What do I need? And how can I make my day better for myself? And where's my head at? Because I spend so much of my day, my baby girl is 6 months, she's at home with me all day. Right. And then we pick up my son, who's almost due from daycare. And it's just wild morning all the way till they go down for bed. And then running a business. So it's like go, 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 go. And there's barely any time for me to eat, let alone pause for 5 minutes and be like, how am I feeling? But I notice at the end of the day, like I'm wound tight, right? And I'm wound tightly. And my husband and I, if we get into a little fight, it'll inevitably blow up into something bigger because I'm so wound tight. And it's probably just
Mhm.
bottled up and built up from the whole rest of the day. And I'm not taking the time to slow down and pause and say, how am I doing today? What am I stressed about? What do I need to de stress myself? And that's so important because it's important to show up for your partner at 100% or close to it, and not stressed out and wound up tightly from the whole day that had nothing to do with him. And that's not fair. And so taking the 5 minutes sounds so simple, yet I know it will take work to actually set an alarm on my phone and say, hey, Alexa, pause and
I always
check
say,
in.
5 minutes might be a bit too ambitious for some folks, and I wanna, like,
Mhm.
alleviate the area for any excuses or just, I
Mhm.
wanna foolproof this. And so I stopped wearing my smartwatch after I stopped working for,
Oh.
others. But when I did, I do recall it would go off, like, every hour, right? And it was
Mhm.
just a minute to tell me to breathe. Do
Ooh,
that. Take a
I
minute.
love
Like,
it.
you don't have to do it's not that serious. Like, I
Mhm.
mean, in the beginning, maybe, for those of us who haven't had a lot of practice and we're starting from scratch, it may take us a minute to identify what we're feeling by pulling
Mhm.
out the feelings wheel. But you even just having the thought to, like, check in with yourself is already progress. Like, we
Mhm.
don't have to be perfect from the jump. Allow yourself, just as you do your business, just as you do your kids, to evolve into this person that's more aware, that's better positioned to address the things that are coming up.
I love this. I think 2 things because my mom brain is just, like, gonna forget it if I don't say it right away. I
Yeah.
love that these are practical tips on how to build your self-awareness because, like you said, it is a muscle, and we see the word self-awareness, but how do we actually build it, and how do we do it, right? How do we become
Mhm.
more self-aware? But this is my mom brain is just, ugh. Forgetting the second thing I wanted to say. Okay, so Miranda, can you share some of your best actionable pieces of advice for mompreneurs as a wrap up?
Yes, I would love to. So, I would say the biggest thing that has helped, at least me, and what I train others to do is create routines.
Mm,
Routines, I feel like it's a parallel. Not only are they gonna help you, but they're also gonna help your child, right? If they know what to expect, if things are predictable, they
Mhm.
feel safer. Doesn't mean that everything's going to go scheduled as usual or to plan, but you're their constant, right? And so
Mhm.
you just showing up where they have no doubts that you can figure it out, right? Just as you would want your business and your
Mhm.
customers, perhaps, if that's the type of business you run, to just know what to expect. And just as you are checking in with yourself, check in with your kid, check in with the status of your business,
Aw. Uh-huh.
so that you can course correct before it's too late when things
Mhm.
start to not work as well. Um, I don't know. There's so many reasons why I would say that. For one, the routines that you set for your child, for both your kids. So you have a 6-month old
Yeah,
and a
yeah,
2-year
six-month-old
old, right?
girl and an
Two ish.
yep, six-month-old girl and an almost two-year-old son.
Yeah, so I imagine that their routines are very different day to day, and they're always evolving, especially for that 6-month-old. Like,
Yeah.
every 2 weeks, it's like something new, like,
Yep, yep.
adjust. And so you remaining present in those routines and course correcting as needed is super essential.
No, I think a good way of I love routines and I love schedules, but flexibility within that
Mhm,
routine is important because yeah, we just dropped from 3 naps to 2 naps for my baby, and that completely threw my schedule off. But
mhm,
being able to have flexibility in a routine, like you said, is important, and I love that, and checking in with your kids and your business, having that check-in. How's my business doing? How's, if you have employees or if you have just, an overarching view of your business and your kids and your family and your partner. And there's just so much to do, all of it.
mhm, for sure. Then there's also, the point where we can get kind of set on a certain thing.
Hmm.
And so if we have a certain goal in mind for our business, and while yes, maybe I can obtain this goal or achieve it, um, it doesn't feel good. Like, it's burning my energy. I'm not
Hmm.
getting enough sleep, or I'm not showing up for my kids the way I want to. Um, Being okay with letting it go. Same
Mm.
thing with kids, like, I'm not gonna enter a power struggle with my 3-year-old, like,
Right.
maybe I start out by saying one thing, but I can explain, "You know what? You're right," or, "Let's try something different," or, "Let's take a break."
Yeah.
So being willing to let things go. So I guess that overall theme
Hmm.
of just flexibility is so helpful, but that's the gift of being present and self-aware.
Hmm.
Otherwise, we would just endlessly just keep trying to go at something that's not working.
Oh, I love that. I love that. Well, thank you, Miranda. And where can we find your book on November 19th?
Yes, well, it will be on Amazon, but the best place to stay abreast and even get some freebies, I have an attachment style audit that you can
Ooh,
download for free at my website, therapistmirandacampbell.com.
I love it. I love it. We will link to that in the description below, as well as to your book, The Attachment Style Makeover. And that's it for today's episode. Don't forget to join the Mompreneur Mastermind community, link below as well. And I will put where we can find you on Instagram, Miranda. And that's it. Thank you so much for being here. I loved having you.